Hey everyone, and welcome to Sasquatch Theory. In this video I interview Fred Roehl from Subarctic Alaska Sasquatch. Fred has had several terrifying encounters in Alaska, and there was one in particular incident that he shared with me years ago that really stuck with me. I will tag that video in the description down below if anyone is interested. Fred was panning for gold with his family on the Nuyakuk River. Fred and his family unknowingly stepped into the Sasquatch's territory, only to find themselves trapped throughout the night in a life or death situation. Can you imagine what it would be like to become the prey of a super predator that should not exist? We hear a lot of encounter stories here in the lower 48 where Bigfoot will sometimes save people or keep them out of harm's way. Sometimes they interact with us and leave us items known as gifts. It is common for people in the Bigfoot community to believe, according to their experiences and what they have heard, that Bigfoot will eat you up north. The chilling truth is Sasquatch are the same no matter where you go. Sure, there are some nice ones out there that go their own way, but the reality is they are most likely man-eaters, and we hear about these strange disappearances in the lower 48, about hunters being found up in trees all mangled up, and people are constantly going missing, never to be seen again. It could be easy to think they are interacting with you sometimes, but in reality, they could possibly be luring you into the woods. I personally believe there are good ones and bad ones just like the human race, and it can be hard to determine someone's true intentions. The best approach to take when interacting with these creatures is to just be careful and to know when it's time to leave. You could think these creatures are nice and maybe you're just interacting with juveniles and females, but when the males show up, it could be a different story, so you just never know, honestly. Again, it could be similar with humans. You could be interacting with somebody's wife and kids, but whenever the male shows up or their dad, they could be very angry, so you just never know, and it's best to be careful. Before we start the interview, if you guys can, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. And if you have a Bigfoot encounter that you would like to share with me here on the channel, please contact me sometime. I am getting to the point where it's difficult to check all the comments, so if you have an encounter you would like to share, please email me at sasquatchtheory@outlook.com if you want to talk about your encounter with me. Alright guys, let's dive into our next Bigfoot interview with Fred Roehl here on Sasquatch Theory. The first time you discovered the hairy man, what were you doing? What happened that day?
Oh man, I was a little kid. I thought elders were just talking junk to keep us out of the woods. In 1983, I had broken away from the kids playing to go work on my tree fort and was walking back. I must have been about 150 yards from the house, but I was going down this trail that went right into these alder brush. They're about 10, 12 foot tall. And as I'm walking along, just something caught my attention and I stop and I look up and I'm about 70 yards from that line and saw this big, tall, dark figure. I thought it was one of my uncles because one of my uncles was like 6'2". I thought it was my Uncle Leo. And I stopped and looked again, and then that's when it started swaying and then screamed. And I got the hell out of there.
So you saw the creature?
Yeah, oh yeah.
He was swaying back and forth?
Yeah, swaying back and forth. But it was just a dark silhouette at 70 yards in the alders. But the thing of it is up until that point, I thought it was just stories to keep us close to the house. You know, I thought I knew it all as a little kid, but I found out different, you know.
Yeah.
Growing up like that, you know, it really opened your eyes to the types of things that the outside world just don't understand. You know what I mean? I could tell them stories about stuff from the village all the time, and most of them would be like, oh, geez, yeah, right. But it's crazy, you know? I get reports from the village all the time of stuff happening, and, you know, anywhere from Gustavus to Haines to up into the interior.
Okay, so your major encounter happened?
2006, you know, we're doing a gold panning, little prospecting mission with my uncle, and you know, he had it all planned out. He started planning it a couple years before, just collecting all the material, small travel sluice box and all the other, fixings for his little gold panning adventure, because he was thinking about staking a claim if we found something. And we ended up on the Nuyakuk River in '06. That was a hell of a trip, man. When we got there, it was a couple hours before dark. We just unloaded stuff, and I wanted to go check for black bears, but it was just getting too dark too fast. So we just hung around. We ate dinner. My uncle made like a salmon chowder, and I forget, had the big pot up on that freaking Coleman stove. And as we're sitting there chatting, he was just giving us marching orders for the next day. We were just there to be worker bees, but he was like, I want samples from here and there, and he's just going over it. And it was about a half hour after dark, and I was messing with the rear sight. I just bought this 870 Remington shotgun. Just bought it, and the ghost ring sight in the rear was off because I took a couple practice shots. And I was messing with that, and as he's telling us and giving us, a talking to about what we're going to be doing, the whole place is. And the messed up part about that is like when that happened, when the whole place creaked, there's a slight difference in the air. It wasn't the pressure, that came later, but there was just a difference. And so when I glance over, my cousin's looking back at me, and just above his right shoulder was the top of the window behind him, and I saw dark movement, and my eyes got big, and he jumped up and said, hey, that ain't funny, And I was like, I giggled, and I was like, no, it's probably a bear, because we're right on the Nuyakuk. I mean, it's a little further away than the lake is from us now, and I remember thinking it's a bear. We're right on the salmon river. We saw a bunch of spawn outs as we were going up, and this was September 17th, 2006. So he grabs a 30-06, and I grabbed a 1,000,000 kilowatt powered spotlight, and I had my shotgun. And when we opened that door, now remember, the place is 5/8 plywood on 2x4. Yeah, I mean, it was chintzy construction. It's 8-foot square with that 50s style trailer in the back. But as we swung that door open, I remember panning over the riverbank, and there was nothing. I was half expecting to see the bear right there, because usually they're just kind of meandering around. Mm-hmm. Well, when there's nothing there and we pan, we're maybe a step outside the door. My cousin's off my left shoulder, and I pan over, and the tree line behind us is about 50 yards away. And as I'm panning, all of a sudden, just 3 sets of eye shine, just big as shit, man, like fence post markers. And immediately, no words were said. We just immediately ducked back in, and that door only had those little J-hook and an eyelet to shut it. But as soon as I shut it and hit the hook, I set down the spotlight. I was holding that shotgun off hand, and I'm trying to talk to my cousin, and I was like, there's a hairy man. I look across to my elder, I'm like, man, there's a hairy man out there. And I mean, it was all happening so fast, but all of a sudden, my cousin's just underneath that card table. They were playing cribbage just before this happened, and the way he fell under there, it looked like he was having a seizure, because he had the rifle barrel in a death grip. He was holding it like someone would a paddle, Mm-hmm. And as I'm looking down at him, I noticed his pants were getting wet. He was pissing himself. Everything was just surreal at that point. It wasn't like slow motion, but it was surreal. It was like, what the hell is going on? Because there was pressure going on, and my elder's just standing there. We look at each other. We look down at him, and we notice he's looking across the room to the other window, which is 18 by 24. And again, 8-foot square, dude. It wasn't a big space. So as he's looking up that way, we look at each other, and we both turn. And as I turn, I notice it looking in the window down at my cousin. It turns its gaze towards me, furrowed its brow a little bit, and started moving. And that's when I shot through the wall 3 times with the shotgun. The thing about that is it was just thump, thump, thump. It wasn't kaboom, none of that. It was just a thump, because that pressure, it felt like we had earmuffs on, Mm-hmm. I'll never forget the scream and the movement of the place was simultaneous. So it almost took me off my feet, but the scream was so loud, it reverberated so loud in there that pot we had stew in was ringing like a tuning fork, dude. Like, wing. I mean, it was powerful.
What did those screams sound like?
It was loud and high-pitched. In that moment, it was panic, dude. When I made eye contact with it, I knew what food felt like.
Yeah.
Like, the level of startled, it freaked me out. But, like, I've said this expression before, but it's like every fiber of your being, every, nerve ending was trying to flee your body, but it couldn't because it was stuck in your skin. It was like an electrical jolt.
When he looked through that window, what did he look like?
Well, the first thing I noticed was the big eyes. They were like big black translucent marbles. There was a slight glow from the lamp, not a full-on eye shine. And ashen gray skin, real wrinkly, super wrinkled face. It was big. I only saw from the bottom of the nose to the top of the brows in that 18 inches, dude. It was big. And the thing that stood out was how ancient it looked. It looks like, you ever see those old tintype photos of Native Americans?
Mm-hmm.
You know, where their skin is super weathered and just wrinkled?
Yeah.
It was like one of those, but the nose was flat to the face and broad at the base. And the hair, it was sparse around through here, but you could tell it had like a Steve Harvey mustache because of how thick it was under the nose. You could just tell. Another thing that stood out was the eyelashes. Women would kill for these eyelashes. They were so uniform. You know, they were symmetrical and very thick. There's something about the way it furrowed its brow that, I don't know, it's hard to put into words because the eyes were a bit sunk in, but they're about a foot apart. And just something about that black translucence kind of look to him, man. It was just real eerie. Real trippy.
Yeah. And you mentioned that it was real quiet, like whenever you shot the shotgun, like all you
It
heard
was thump, thump, thump.
Yeah.
And it should have been, I mean, it was like an 18-inch barrel on it. It was a brush gun. You know what I mean? Rifled barrel.
The pressure was different, so you think they produced infrasound?
Yeah. I didn't know what that was at the time, but that's the only thing that makes sense because, I mean, literally, as soon as I dropped that J-hook, man, it was like earmuffs on.
Okay,
It was like
kind of like you had earmuffs on.
Yeah.
And I remember you saying that back in camp. You mentioned that infrasound. It caught my attention.
And, you know, another thing, it's very similar to like if you're on an airplane and your ears haven't popped and the person you're talking right next to, they sound a little further away than what they are.
Yeah.
It was very similar to that.
Okay.
But, yeah, when I was almost taking off my feet, it was like I was panic inside, you know. I'd been asked if I was protecting my family when I shot through the wall. I was like, hell no. It was more like, get off me. I felt it like overbearing, like over me kind of feel, you know what I mean?
At this point, how do you feel? Like, what do you think their intentions were? They're trying to push you guys out of there, or they're trying to kill you guys?
They tried to lure us out, man. They lured us out into an ambush, and we saw it before. We just didn't know it.
Yeah.
Because had we not noticed those three, we would have walked right out around the corner to where this one was. I mean, it would have been right there. So, you know, 20/20 hindsight, and of course, I don't know for sure, it's speculation, but it felt like an ambush. You know, all the things they did, I mean, you know, so after I shot through the wall and it screamed, it went dead quiet, dude, for frickin' hours. I mean, hours. I had the one chair backed up against the door for, it wasn't gonna do nothing, you know what I mean? But I had the other one, the back of it to this little cubby area, and I kept trying to engage my elder, you know, hey, what do we do? What do we do? And he would just talk about random nonsense, you know, oh, the fishing price wasn't bad, you know, we had good poundage, you know, things like that. Like, it was totally deflective, and he wouldn't respond or react.
Incoherent to the situation.
Well, the thing of it is there's a lot of superstition in the village. You know, there's talk of bad omens with these things. You don't talk about them. You could bring them around. You could bring death to the family or bad fishing. You know, stuff like that. So, I mean, I get it.
It sounds like a bull out there.
It did, didn't it?
Yeah.
But anyway, so it was disheartening. You know, I was looking for guidance. Because up until that point, I would have told you, man, they make noise. You leave there, you know, it's no big deal. I would have never, I mean, even though I heard the stories of people going missing and stuff, up until that point, I didn't see that happening. I've only seen them make noise and we leave or they leave. I've never had that confrontation like that, you know, like in your face, I'm here to get you kind of deal, man. And it.
So what happened after that?
I sat in that chair for hours, gripping that shotgun so hard it hurt my hands, pumping that stupid lamp. To this day, I still can't have one of those Coleman lamps hissing around me. I just won't do it, you know. But so sitting there, you know, after a handful or more of hours, when my cousin started coming back to me, so to speak, you know, at first he was babbling, and I got him up and said, hey, I shot it, it's gone. I was trying to reassure him, you know, hey, we're safe now, it left. Even though in my heart of hearts, bro, I knew it wasn't done. Just something, it was a feeling I had. So he gets up finally. I asked him, I was like, what did you see, dude? Because I was engaging him on the 3 sets of eye shine, you know, when he went under the table.
Yeah.
And so once he was back to, you know, he said, yeah, I saw the eye shine and all that. And I said, well, why'd you go under the table? He goes, I was looking, because he was off my left shoulder. He had a better vantage point looking further out that window. I wasn't paying attention to the window when we first came inside. I'm looking at my elder and stuff. Well, from his perspective, because he was about 1.5 feet further away from me, he was looking straight out, and this thing showed its teeth to him, and that freaked him out and did whatever to him, and he went under the table. And he said it was further back from the window, but when he fell under the table, he's still looking that way, and it came in closer to the window. And then that's when we looked at him and then turned and saw it, you know, and then it continued moving out of the way. But so we get him changed, you know. It was really rough, because this same person shot brown bears with me, charging sow, dude. Stood there like a soldier, you know, didn't flinch, nothing, solid. But to see him in that condition, dude, freaked out. He had wet himself, and I'm no hero. I was scared shitless, dude. I mean, I wasn't like, oh yeah, I'm gonna shoot now. No, it was all, you know, involuntary. It was remote. It was just reactive. So we start talking about what we're gonna do, and it's really hard because, you know, we're all sitting there, and those two are tucked in the little cubby. I'm still in the chair, and trying to devise a game plan, because it's pitch black out, dude. I mean, it's darker than dark. If you're outside, you couldn't see your hand in front of your face type thing, and you can't safely go on a river like that. But we had tried to plan on maybe using that big spotlight and just drift. We just went over a bunch of various little plans or schemes to get out of there, because the boat's 20 feet away and just 6 foot drop, you know, 6-7 foot drop down to the little landing. But it felt like 10 miles away, you know, in those moments. So he says, okay, well, you know, we gather up some stuff, and we're trying to figure out where the rest of the ammo is, just simple shit, you know. Well, once we got some more boxes of ammo out on the table and stuff, he brought up, let's use the spotlight and see if we can see him around before we leave. Fair enough, you know, I mean, it makes sense. So we had to kill that lantern because it was giving a mirrored effect, you know, because it's so black outside, the inside of the windows with no curtains, it looked like a mirror. So we killed that, and we spotlight the riverbank side first, and nothing. And believe me, we were looking, dude. We were looking good, and no eye shine or nothing. So we went over to the other window, and that would be the side that inside from the river where the tree line was, where we saw the 3 sets of eye shine. And you know, when I beamed over there, I beamed right for that area we saw the 3, you know, and there was nothing there. And we were looking, and we panned back, and off the back corner of this place, you know, 40 maybe, I mean, not very far, there's an old outhouse that's just dilapidated, but it's still standing. It was 8 foot tall, you know, just simple construction, because those places, they use minimal cuts. You know, they just slap it together. Well, behind that, once we panned over there, there's this huge black figure, and it took a second to, you know, like actually see it, because it was like absorbing the light, but you could make it out. It was hulking big, dude. And it wasn't right up on the outhouse, but it was back behind it just a little ways, but it was still towering over it. You know, it had to be 13, 14 foot tall and just wide, 5.5 foot easy. And the thing of it is, the size was scary, but it was so black, it was absorbing that light. That freaked me out more than anything, because there was like a big black nothing there for us, you know? So we killed the light, and we ducked back in that cubby, and at that point, man, we had barrels crossed. We were all talking, but no one was listening. You know what I mean? It was chaos. So we're sitting there quiet for a while, and it's dead quiet. You know, it's pitch black in there. We can't hear anything. Still got that pressure going, but we didn't hear any movement outside. There was nothing that happened. It was just, we saw it and we ran and hid, and that was that. But as we're sitting there, we calmed down, and we're like, all right, we re-engage our plan to leave, because once it calmed down, we calmed down and we re-energized to get out of there, you know? And as we're sitting there, it seemed like every time we were getting ready to plan something to get out of there, we were countered with something. So we're literally getting ready to make a break for it. We gotta cut the bow line, because we had like 50 to 70 foot of rope to an anchor, and no one was going to retrieve that shit, you know? So I told him, you'll need the knife. He was gonna use the shotgun. I was gonna use a 30-06, and I had my elder's shotgun over my shoulder. It was 36-inch, just monstrosity. It was like an old Wingmaster or something, but it was a good old shotgun, but it was for geese, but we swapped it out with slugs. We were getting ready to kind of make a move and spotlight again, and we had just killed lights from gathering ammo, and off in the near distance, you hear this, it sounded like rotor wash, thump, 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 thump. And we started feeling it in the ground, and all of a sudden you could just hear this thing run past. And it was like they were scattered around the place, and they all started running in different directions. You could feel the different size of them by the impact of their feet. Some were heavier than others, you know, and it was chaos, man. So what they would do is they would run around a bit and then back away, and then do it again and back away. And it was like right after the second time, and they were doing it again, as it was happening, we could hear sniffing on the outside of the trailer. I mean, to this day, my dogs can't even sniff near me. It's just instantly, hair on my arm stands up, and it's just all bad. But so that happens. You know, it was, again, white knuckle terror. We're tucked back in that area. At that point, they were making noises outside. I couldn't tell you what they were, but they were definitely vocalizing. There was definitely stuff happening, you know, vocally. I was so terrified, I couldn't tell you what one single sound they were making outside of the sniffing noise, because that was just like right near our heads. You know what I mean? Sniffing, dude. I don't know what the hell that was about, but it almost felt like they were feeding on our fear, you know, because every time we calmed down, it seemed like things would get ramped up again, you know? So once they backed off for the last time on that little fiasco, we calmed down because it was quiet, and then we re-engage our plan, and, you know, we were just getting and at this point, the light's starting to change outside. You know, it's definitely, we're on the daybreak side real soon. And still can't see the tree line very good and all that, but we're still gonna risk it, you know, because they were actively doing stuff. So as we're about stacked up, ready to go on that attempt, all of a sudden we hear this thack, thack, and it sounded like someone shooting a pellet gun against the shack. It was the damnedest thing. And then the cadence was just 1, 2, 1, 2, and then it just progressed rapidly into like a hailstorm hitting a metal roof, as you know, similar to the sound is. And right back into that cubby, man. We were all hunkered down. And I don't know exactly how long we were back in there, you know, once the rock stopped, but it was long enough to where it was on the better side of daylight, to where we could see the tree line. We didn't need a flashlight to see the ground out in front of us. The trees were still dark and silhouetted. You've seen what that's like. And so we were more confident. We didn't see nothing, so they must have backed off. They must have left. You know what I mean? So now is our time to go. So we stack up on that door, handed my cousin my knife. He was supposed to cut that bow line. My elder's behind me. I had a shotgun on the shoulder. I'm holding the 30-06, and I say, go, and we go out the door. And we had never done it before in our lives, man, but I tell you what, when we broke out that door, dude, we were proficient. It was one unit. Just, it was like we practiced it our whole life, you know, just do-do-do. He jumped down. I sat down the 30-06, and I helped my elder get around me. I'm helping him get his footing, right? And as I'm helping him, because it's a bit of a slant, and you know, he's an elder, he wasn't like disabled in any way. He had a little hitch in his giddy up, but he wasn't spry either. And there was dew on the grass, and it was a cut bank, so it was kind of hanging. So I helped him get his footing. And when he had his footing, the way I was leaning, that shotgun I had over my shoulder was so long, it was pushing the ground and pushing me forward, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so I'm trying to adjust that. I scoot back. Once he had his footing, I scooted back about 4 to 6 inches, grabbed 30-06, and I stand up. And when I got to full height, this rock, a little bigger than a basketball, whizzes past my face. And when it was right here, it was like it went slow motion, man, and I followed it till it impacted the water, and it impacted in about 3 feet of water. But the Nuyakuk's fast moving, but this thing hit with such force, it impacted the bottom, and you heard it go crack before the water could close over it. It was loud. Immediately, I have that 30-06, and I turn to my left, and at that tree line, that big black nothingness was coming out of the trees, and immediately, man, 3 shots center mass. I had no eyes to shoot for. It was just a black silhouette, and it was moving, you know? So I put 3 shots on it. It didn't flinch. It didn't do nothing. I mean, I heard the bullets hit. It just stopped moving forward. Immediately, I turned and I jumped down the bank. I noticed my shotgun on the ground. My cousin has the outboard started, but it's idle, it's cold. So it's idling high, and he's trying to shift, and I'm telling him, idle down to shift. And I'm like, throw me my knife. And so he throws the knife. I set the 30-06 down, I cut that line, and I'm putting the chain in, and I notice my elder is just sitting on the edge with his feet outside. I walked over, I shoved him into the skiff. I wasn't trying to be a dick, but it was go time, you know? He bruised his wrist pretty bad, but so when I pushed him in, he fell on his ass and then turned and faced towards the bow, looking my direction. And I never forget, I get the rest of the chain in there, and I'm thinking, grab your shotgun. For whatever reason, my cousin left it right there on the beach, a little landing area. But as that's happening, he shifts, and I look back at him, and everything kind of goes slow motion because their eyes get real big, and they're looking up at the riverbank behind me, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I turn back as I'm pushing, and I see up to about just below the knee. I saw the shins. I didn't see the feet because the way the riverbank was, it was above me. But it had dark hair, and the tips were like an auburn red, cinnamon kind of red, but the rest of it was almost like a rose hair tarantula is what it reminded me of, you know, if that makes sense. But I never forget in those moments when you're super freaked out, usually a memory will play through, but in these moments it was like just pictures, you know what I mean? Because it was just so chaotic. So I push off, I jump in, and I'm immediately in the bow of the skiff on my knees with that bolt open, putting more rounds in that 30-06, right? And I'll never forget, he backed up, and there was chaos going on. I wasn't paying attention to it. I was tunnel visioning hard, dude, at this point. Just like when I turned to shoot the black one coming out of the trees, it was tunnel visioning, like it was weird. But one of the creepy things, when I'm looking at it, there was movement off to its left and right. There was stuff happening outside of just this one. There was movement. But we get going, and we're rocking back and forth, right? And I didn't find this out till like 15 years later. As I was loading that 30-06 and I had my head down, and he was swerving, I thought he was trying to break friction to get up on step. But what it was these things were chucking rocks at the skiff, at the outboard. There was a big dent in the transom. It had cracked the cowling. And luckily, even though it was cold, he slowly got it up and going on step. And when we're still right in that general area, I looked up once off to my left, and I saw movement just inside the trees because the bank was a little high. But I could see movement. Thankfully, they didn't follow us too long because honestly, at that point, I was expecting trees to drop in front of us on the river. Like in my mind's eye, you know? And so I had that 30-06 reloaded. I'm looking for 220 grain rounds, right, that we'd use for a big bear, but it was irrelevant at that point because they had stopped chasing us, the activity stopped. And once we got down to where the Nuyakuk is with the confluence of the Nuyakuk River, I felt like I weighed 1,000 pounds, man, for all those hours gripping that shotgun so hard, dude, like just the whole body being tense, and it was crazy. you know, and the worst thing is up until that point, me and my elder and my cousin, we were 3 peas in a pod, dude. We did everything together. Anytime there was adventure to be had, it was us. At least the core, other people might join us, but no matter what, there would always be us going. And that was destroyed, you know. I don't know if it was just the reality of being with the people, you had something so traumatic happen. And me, I wouldn't shut up. I was telling anyone with a pair of ears, hey, dude, watch out on the Nuyakuk. They try to fucking get us, dude. You know, they were out to get us. And come to find out, years later, several people have had experiences on the Nuyakuk River. And for the majority, they've had to fire shots to get these things to back off, you know?
And when you guys were leaving on the boat, you mentioned one threw a rock at you?
It was throwing a rock at the outboard.
At the outboard?
Yeah,
okay.
Trying to disable us.
Man, that's messed up.
Yeah, because once we got down to Kaliganik, I looked at the transom, and I noticed there was a dent. But you know, in your mind's eye, when things are going on, you just notice stuff, but you don't think about it. But it made sense years later when my cousin told me we were swerving back and forth to avoid the rocks. You know, I didn't see that part. He did though. He saw that shit. He was standing right back at the motor, swerving, moving, and you know, even he said he thought they were going to try to take him out with a rock.
Right.
You know.
So it sounded like they were trying to get you guys for sure. They didn't want you guys to leave out there.
If they were wanting us to leave successful, we were leaving. You know,
right.
There'd be no reason to keep chucking rocks at us.
Yeah.
Well, outside of I shot a couple of them, but you know, I was asked, do you think it died? And I said, I hope it did. I hope that thing festered and died. Hell yeah. You know, and other people will say, oh, well, you were in their backyard. And I disagree with that. But, yeah, they're not my friend, you know. And dealing with that and then hearing, it was many years later that this genre or this topic, you know, had become more popular and mainstream. I'm hearing these experiences people are having that aren't bad, and it was news to me, you know, because I'm biased. I'll be the first one to say it. I don't trust them. They ain't my friend.
Man, these mosquitoes are terrible.
Oh, dude, this is nothing. Wait till if you were to go back and where these muskegs are back over there, dude, tromp around there for a minute. Believe me, I've seen them so thick, bro, around a moose's head, it will come running out of the brush and into the water trying to get away from them. You'll hear this big commotion. You're like, what the hell? Everyone's grabbing guns, and all of a sudden, the moose just tears out into the pond or the lake.
He's like, I can't take it anymore.
No, seriously.
Yeah.
They go nuts.
That's wild.
Swimming around, just shaking their head, sticking their head underwater, shaking, just going nuts. Climb back out, run off again.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So you were shocked to find out that in other areas people were interacting with these things, swapping berries.
Up here, our oral history is they're our enemy. You know, they're not our friend. They'll take you and eat you. You know. Nowhere in our oral history ever said that we had ever traded with them or anything like that. Now, there may be other native tribes in Alaska that have had that, but I personally haven't seen that where we're from.
Yeah.
You know, because neighbors would be on VHF. A pilot flying over would see one out in the marsh or something in radio, you know, local air traffic, local, you know, whoever. And it would just be the relay. Everyone would hear it, but then family members would start radioing, hey, there's a hairy man in the gravel pit, you know, and all us kids would have to go inside type thing. But hearing about the good experiences, it was like, for me, because I'm biased, you know, from what I've been through, when I was hearing them, I'm like, what a bunch of fanciful crap. But that's totally unfair, you know what I mean? Because it's totally different environment. It's not Alaska. But, you know, I mean, part of me was like, man, I wish we would have had that encounter, because when they came to the shack, dude, they weren't coming to be friends. There was nothing. It was all in the air. It was the energy. When it was looking in that window, the energy I felt was doom. It was like, I got you. That when it looked at me and furrowed its brow, it was like, I got you. And so when I hear these experiences from others from out of state, at first I was like, man, I have a hard time with that. It doesn't mean that it's not happening. It's just me personally with my own bias. But, you know, I started the channel to bring balance to that, because, you know, no matter where you're at, if you look back in history, you know, the stories of the wild man and newspaper articles and stuff like that, people have lost their lives down there as well. You know, so hearing all these, you know, stories of friendship and this and that, you know, I figured I better start letting people know about Alaska, because a lot of people want to come up here, you know, and visit. And, you know, special thank you to those who made it possible for Miguel to be up here in Alaska with us. You know, it was really cool.
Yeah.
It was a really cool thing.
Shout out to all the helpers.
Yep. Shout out to them. They want to remain anonymous. We respect that, but thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Really cool. I mean, look at where we're at, dude. You know? Yeah. I mean, dude.
Yeah, this is amazing.
It is beautiful. But so I just wanted people to know about Alaska and what's going on up here. Because it's the same animal, but different conditions. You know, the environment's so harsh and rugged. I mean, you witnessed it firsthand. I mean, we had, 3 bears, one with a cub, you know?
In a blink of an eye, you could be dead.
Yeah. I mean, look, when we're breaking camp, all of a sudden Russ is like, hey, bear, and all of a sudden everyone's got a gun and everyone's taking it serious.
Happens when you least expect
that quick.
it.
Yeah, it's all random, you know? But thankfully, you know, none of us were hurt with the bears. But Alaska, it's different. You can't predict anything, you know? Even the predictable things are unpredictable. Like, you know, the weather, for example, there's certain telltale signs of when the wind will kick up. You know, those are pretty standard. But when it comes to the wildlife, man, it's something else. You know, it's totally its own unique thing. One of the reasons I love it and respect it, but, you know, I just think there should be more balance. And you know, some people, they get the wrong idea. They may come to an area to where they're not friendly, and they may have the wrong idea that they are, and they may push the boundaries too far. You know what I mean? Because we got 500 to 2,000 missing people a year up here. Yeah. You know, like over 60,000 since they started keeping track in '89 or something crazy. It's insane, dude.
Yeah. And do you think it's because of the harsh conditions and how rugged it is that possibly makes the Sasquatch a lot more territorial? Maybe there's so much land that they're not used to people encroaching on their areas.
Right.
And they got to fight things off like moose, grizzly bears, things like that.
Yeah, well, actually, you know, I showed you that picture of that one standing behind the moose. You know what I mean? I don't think they're scared of anything, because I got reports of them killing bears, reports of them killing moose, caribou. So I don't think they're worried about them as much as a lot of the experiences that happen up here are at resource locations, berry patches, fishing, hunting. You know, that's where a big bulk of encounters happen. And I think it has to do with just direct competition for that food source. We got a short season. We have a lot of resources, but a short time to gather them. So, you know, if you got your favorite fishing hole and there's a stranger there, you know, it could turn bad for you, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's crazy, man.
So have you encountered the Sasquatch after the trip upriver gold panning?
Yeah, the following year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what happened
we were
there?
triangulated by 3 of them. They're making these weird owl hoots with this simultaneous click popping. It was crazy, man. We came upriver. I just freshly injured my hand on the fishing boat. I had a severely compressed median nerve in my right hand because it got cinched on the fishing boat. So I had this quasi bandage on it, you know, and me and my cousin Paul and cousin James we had to take James up to Nuyakuk to drop him off because he was gonna hang out there until hunting season with some relatives. We're running behind, you know. We were fucking around, dude. Let me be honest, you know. We're some Indians getting ready to go whoop it up out in the woods, and we're heading up river and it's starting to get dark, you know. We're like, crap, we need to find a spot. Well, this little pullout we decided to use right off the bank of the Nuyakuk River is right by a bend, and at the end of this bend on the side that we chose, there's these bluffs that start there and they get higher and higher going towards Ekwak. And right in that area, unbeknownst to me, the locals there will tell you stay away from those bluffs. You know, that's where the hairy man is. We didn't know. We get back up in there, and we just set up a pop tent, throw our bag of beer and whatever in there, and we started this bonfire because there was a bunch of beetle kill. We ran a chainsaw for like 20 minutes, you know, and we get this fire going. Everything was fine, and as we're sitting there chatting like me and you are, we hear a natural sounding owl hoot. In front of me, it'd be like, you know, 10 o'clock position on the clock. It was about 60 yards away, I guesstimated, you know, just a simple owl hoot, no big deal. However, a moment later, behind us about maybe 100 yards more at like the, you know, 7, 8 o'clock position, back over here up on this ridge, we hear an imitation owl hoot. That was horrible imitation and loud as hell, dude. I mean, we felt it. We're like, oh shit, you know? And as soon as that one sounded, across the river, which was at that point probably 80 yards and then another 20 yards to the trees it must have been in, it let out an owl hoot. And the owl hoot it let out was real drawn out, and I could feel it in my pant legs, like the sound waves on my pant legs. And we immediately all stood up and checked guns, and we're like, oh crap. And when that one got done, from the first spot, it was just a touch closer, imitating an owl hoot. And then the one back over here was a little closer, imitated an owl hoot again. And then when the one across the way imitated the owl hoot, we heard it take off running towards upriver, up from us, right? Well, around this bend is the narrowest spot, and we heard this thing splash into the water. We heard a bunch of ruckus above us. We couldn't see it. And when we assumed it got out of the water, we heard it sound off again. But when it started hooting this time, there was that click popping going on with it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it was a freaking awesome sound, but creepy as hell, because it was simultaneous. You know, you got this owl hoot, and while it's hooting, you got this click pop. It was like two distinctly separate sounds at once, you know? And so that started happening. They all started imitating with that clicking and popping. And it was obvious they were moving in, and as we started building that bonfire up, it got so hot, our pop-up tent was about 15, 20 feet away, and one of the guidelines down to the ground, which was same distance, it was so hot it melted that guideline, you know? And at that point, we're freaking out. It was like, holy crap, because this is really getting into dark now, you know? The bonfire is lighting up the trees around us and stuff. It was a good-sized opening, but just below us, between where we were banked and where we had the tent set up, all the grass was low. I mean, nothing was higher than a foot tall. There was no shrubs there. It was kind of open and mossy. And we heard movement behind us, and it had to have been about 25 feet away, but we couldn't see anything, right? And that was when everyone was like, it's time to go. You know, we grabbed the bag, we left the tent, we got into the skiff, and we basically drifted. And what we were going to do is keep an eye on the bonfire, because we didn't want to start a forest fire, but we didn't want to be there. So we drifted out, and we drifted a little further than we wanted to before the anchor caught, and we sat there. And while we were sitting there, we're kind of laughing about what we were dealing with. Then all of a sudden, the screams started back in that little area where that first owl hoot originated. We heard screams and weird noises. Sounded demonic as hell, dude. If there was a Hollywood person there that was recording that, they wouldn't have had any better demonic sounding screams and growls and grunts and stuff. So we sat there listening to it, and we're all in the skiff, and we're being quiet, listening to this go on, and we'd whisper like, holy crap, when a real loud noise would happen or whatever. But once one of the logs came flying out into the river that was just in the fire, because we had a bunch of them laid in the fire where one end was burning but the other end wasn't, and we just push it in little by little, you know. Mm-hmm. But one of those logs came flying out into the river, and once that happened, it was time to go. We just pulled the anchor and drifted out of there, you know. But that was the next year. I mean, less than a year later. And the only reason I went back into the woods is, man, this stuff's in my blood, dude. Look at this. Had I not gotten back on the horse, so to speak, I would have never went out in the woods again, man. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't have, you know?
Yeah. You kind of have to get back out in nature after an encounter as a form of therapy. I remember Kerry Arnold, when he was still alive, that he mentioned he quit going out for like 12, 15 years.
Yeah.
And he didn't like it. It spooked him out.
Yeah, no, I had to immediately get back on it because, you know, growing up as, you know, I'm a Chug Young Tribal Council member, man. We're raised subsistence. It was in my blood to go out and hunt and, you know, gather. You know, I mean, it's a modern version of hunter-gatherer, but it's a real deal. You know, you get out there and you do what you got to do to make sure you got your grub, you know, ready for winter and all that. And I wouldn't have survived had I just stayed inside. You know, I just couldn't have done it.
Right. You mentioned that one of the Sasquatch mouth popped and it sounded like a wood knock.
Oh yeah, that was years back. What it was we were coming back from Nuyakuk, and in the wintertime, the snow machine trail is perfect, you know, because you got a lot of tundra marsh and, you know, just wide open areas. But in the spring, the trail is still okay up until a certain point of runoff, and then it's junk. But we were coming back from Nuyakuk, and we're on four-wheelers, and the lead four-wheeler got stuck in the marsh. So we're all contemplating how to get him out because he was leading the way. He was the one that knew the trail. And there was about 11 of us, a bunch of double riders and a couple kids. And as we're standing there, one of the kids had noticed the hairy man off to our right. It was about 100 yards out, just standing in the middle of the muskeg, dude. It must have been about 10 foot. And we're all just kind of shocked, like, oh shit, you know, it's over there. And one of the little kids was like, we should shoot it. And the other kid was like, you're dumb. You don't shoot it. Don't be dumb. And so as we're talking, like, and kind of in shock that it was standing over there, it did a tongue pop because it had its hands down to its side. But the tongue pop was like two Louisville sluggers hitting each other, right? I mean, loud, crack. And we're like, whoa. It did it once, and then it followed up with a second one, like, within a couple seconds. And when it did the second one, it kind of lurched forward a little bit like that, kind of like a challenge, and we all just stood there like, what the hell? And then it just took off from immediately, we're looking at it in front of us, it took off to the left, and it was moving so fast, you could see the marsh water and stuff spitting up behind it. It was just boom, gone. Well, about a half mile, once we got unstuck, half mile down, across the muskeg, it must have been about 300 yards, along the tree line, we saw movement of a couple others. So what we suspect in 2020 hindsight is that one distracted us and the family unit moved behind us while we were distracted.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I mean, it could have been something else, but that made sense, you know, as far as how that played out. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So ever since these encounters, you began speaking to other people, other locals in the area. And Alaska's a huge state. You started your own channel, and ever since then, you've been taking reports?
Yeah, just been, you know, just getting, I have the interactive map on the website, you know, at Subarctic Alaska Sasquatch.com, and the whole point of that map is so when you go to the map, you can zoom in on an area, and there's marker pins where experiences happen. You click on the marker pin, it'll show a little synopsis, but it's also embedded with my YouTube channel, so you can click it right there, and it'll take you right to that encounter video. And you can use it as reference, like maybe they owl hooted there, maybe over there it was just whistles and screams, or, you know, just little things that could help somebody if they're out in the woods in that area, just different signs, you know, to be aware of, just like being bear aware. I don't want to keep anyone out of the woods, dude. I want everyone to enjoy this. This is beautiful, but there's dangers here that...
Yeah, it's not necessarily to help researchers find Sasquatch. It's to help people know.
Help people
if you go in there,
Yeah.
this is where things have happened. And
public safety.
Yeah,
You know, I don't care
absolutely.
if someone goes to research. God bless them. Hey, be safe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't care. I'm not territorial. You know, I'm a, this is my squatching spot. It's not like that.
Yeah.
Look how
Doesn't
big
work
this
like
place
that.
is, dude.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
we went over 20 miles in 2 days by a little boat, you know, and we didn't even barely study anything. I mean, in the big scope of things, this state's so huge.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, but whatever they do out here in Alaska, hunting, whatever, man, you got to be careful.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You can't take it for granted. Look at the weather change we dealt with. You know, you had water seeping in the boat. We had bear activity. You know, all this is less than a day, you know. It can just escalate. You know, it can go from just calm and everyone mellow to all of a sudden, hey, bear, you know, guns are getting, you know, unholstered and all sorts of stuff. It happens so fast.
Especially when winter comes. Like, if you're out there exploring and it's going to be 20, 40 below that night and you get chased off by a bear and get lost.
Well, bears are hibernating at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have more like wolves. And,
Okay.
you know, that type of thing.
But there can be bears maybe that
if there is, there's some serious problems going on with that bear. Didn't get enough to eat, and you're in serious trouble, dude.
Yeah.
You're in serious trouble. Like the emaciated one you guys saw, that's a dangerous bear. You know, like I was telling the park ranger yesterday, I was like, hey, there's an emaciated bear. It should be about a 700-pounder, but you could tell it was lean, and it was harassing some girls. Is your camera overheating?
No.
Oh, okay. But, you know, up until I said it was harassing some girls when my friend ran it off, he didn't take it serious until then because it's Alaska. Yeah, that's what bears do. But if there is an aggressive bear, they will tend to it, you know, just like any smart person should. You know, I feel bad that it's emaciated, but had it rushed camp, bro, I'd eliminate it with extreme prejudice.
You got to do what you got to do, man.
Yeah, right now. Right now, you know, and you can't take it for granted like it's just a bluff charge, you know?
Right. So what are your plans for the future with taking reports, running the channel, the website?
Just continue doing what I'm doing, you know? I talk to people all around the state, and, you know, they're warming up and coming forward more and more. And a lot of the experiences that are being shared, they're not immediate, like from recent years. Some of them 20, 30, 40 years or longer old, you know? So sometimes people will watch the channel and get the misinterpretation that this is all happening all the time, everywhere, and that's not the case. It's, you know, many years and miles in between some of these experiences, you know what I mean? So it's so random in nature. You know, just keep on plugging away. You know, I just got a call yesterday morning from a guy in Palmer, you know, with a couple experiences that he wanted to share. And it happens like that. You know, people will see what I'm doing and see that I take it serious and I don't mock people because I already know. I don't need evidence. You know, I filmed juvenile trackways, twisted trees, you know, I have that footage from outside of a village. You know, they want to remain anonymous. I'm giving them time to let things calm down because it's still an active situation, you know. You know, Gustavus is dealing with the same type of thing. Southeast Alaska this year seems to be a little spicier than normal, I guess, you know. And that's another reason I'm compiling this data is I want to get it on a spreadsheet so we could see if there's more activity on an odd year or an even year. See if there's nuances that we could potentially, you know, predict something. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I wonder, let's say if each year there's less moose being seen, less salmon, things like that. If the grizzly bear, the Sasquatch will start taking more people.
Yeah, it's inevitable. I mean, if it continues that way, I grant you we're years away from that happening, but that is definitely a potential outcome, dude. It really is. I mean, you know, our oral history wasn't there for bedtime stories. It was there to keep us safe and keep us alive because all it is just where the hunting grounds are, where the fishing grounds are, where winter camp is, summer camp, all these things and the animals within it. And none of it's made to be entertainment. It's for our safety. So when you're told the hairy man will steal you and eat you, you believe it. You know, leave the little people alone, you know, because they're mischievous. You know, if you see them and they're little tricksters or whatever, they can, you know, there's stories of them stealing souls, stealing little kids.
Have you seen a little person before?
I haven't, no.
Yeah, but you know people that have.
I've kind of saw one off at a distance, but I couldn't say 100%. You know what I mean? Because it was going from tree to tree, and it was a crazy situation. But the reports I get are creepy as hell, man. You know, a fog will roll in, an unnatural fog. You know, people are seeing who they think they're their friend until they get closer, and then all of a sudden it's this 3-foot-tall goblin-looking thing, real long arms, real long nails.
Yeah, it's creepy. I hear a lot of reports from the Great Lakes area, Minnesota, Michigan.
Yeah.
And I guess they're all over up north.
Yeah, and you know, the thing of it is I've touched on a few little people stories on the channel, but I have just as many little people stories as I do hairy man stories. It just so happens I decided to start the channel with the hairy man and kind of run the gambit. You know, little people, Kushtaka, Moose Man, you know, just and go through it all because, you know, a lot of people have had different experiences. You know, even the guy we talked to the other day, you know, he's talking about his UFO experience, you know. I mean, we're literally sitting in the Alaska Triangle, dude. We're right in the middle of it.
Everyone we talk to on the trails out there,
Yeah.
they all mention the hairy man and little people.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you kind of just have to break the ice with them. Hey, have you seen anything weird out here?
And that's it. And as long as you're not coming across mockingly, a lot of times they'll be honest. And what's funny is, like we were talking about earlier, oh, I have a friend.
Yeah.
And my friend got scared to death at this camp or
They
whatever.
could be that
More
friend.
likely it was them, you know, because of how they say, well, I have a friend. You know,
Yeah.
they preface it real, you know, like abruptly. My friend saw this.
Yeah.
Like a little, I don't know, it's like a putting up a boundary or a border or something, you know, like a false sense of, oh, my friend saw it, not me, so don't mock me, mock him, you know, this is what he said he saw, you know, that type of thing.
Do you think it has anything to do with UFOs, aliens, the Nephilim? What is your native?
Now, the UFO thing, I'm not sure, because I've seen crazy lights, you know, upriver and stuff like that. I've never seen crazy lights and then a hairy man experience, so I
Right.
can't correlate the two, but there's definitely both those aspects
They're
going
both
on.
happening out here.
Yeah, they're both happening. My feeling is see, I feel they're part of the corrupted flesh that's spoken about in the Bible. Not the fallen angels, but when they were here, they corrupted a bunch of different animals, beasts of the field, fish of the sea, and birds of the air. And I think they're part of that, and they're a holdover from that, you know, and that they know more than we do when it comes to certain things. I'm pretty sure of it, dude.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, ancient knowledge that they lie to us about everything, dude. I was going to be a history teacher up until I realized they'd lie to me about history.
Yeah, history's been wiped and changed
Yeah,
so many
and
different
so I couldn't-
times. Nobody knows what's
Yeah.
right and what's wrong.
Yep, exactly. And it's all by
Just
design.
the basics.
Yeah, you know, and it's really sad. But there could be a correlation. I haven't heard of a direct correlation between those, but they could all be part of the same thing, just doing separate things. You know what I mean? So, I mean, of course it's speculation, but I mean, geez, who knows? You know?
It's kind of like wildlife and nature. Like you got bears, moose, everything's doing their own thing, but they all
Right.
originate from nature.
Exactly.
It's kind of the same with the cryptids and aliens. Like
Yeah, yeah.
they're all out here.
And, you know, who's to say? You know, I had an elder tell me long before I even had my encounter in '06 that the hairy man, because I was talking to one of my cousins about it, this lady said the hairy man is an empty vessel. When you see them just picking berries or doing whatever, they're not being aggressive, they're just an empty vessel. But when they're attacking and killing people, they're possessed by a demon. And I found it intriguing, but it was just some old lady telling me this, you know. Even though she was an elder and I respect it, I'd never heard it before, you know, that they were just an empty vessel and they were used when the demon, you know, possessed them.
I've heard that about like dog man, that like a person can become a dog man. Didn't you tell me an encounter story, or maybe you heard it from someone else, where they trapped a juvenile and when they went back, there was just a little girl.
Woman. Yeah, that was an oral tradition from Kaliganek, the original Kaliganek, because the one that's there now is the third one, but they had to move it a few times because of ice damming on the river during breakup. But they caught this young juvenile hairy man, dug a pit, put it down in the pit and covered it up, and would give it food and water for like 3, 4, 5 days. And on the 5th morning or whatever it was, they heard a voice saying, help me, I'm cold. So they looked in the pit, and there was a missing villager that had been missing for 2 years, you know? Some people suspect it was a swap or something like that, but there's this story that when they steal you, they either choose to eat you or transform you. And if they transform you, it'll take 5 days for you to morph back into yourself. There's another story of a lady, she lost her husband. He went out to hunt, and this was long before statehood. This was, I mean, many, many years ago. Husband left to go hunting, never came back. So she mourned him for 2 years and then started doing her own fishing and stuff like that, right? Well, they had a smokehouse that he built, a real good one. And as she was smoking fish, she saw a hairy man go in there, and so she ran over and locked it in and ran and got help. And they all came there, and they were waiting. You know, this thing was trying to break out a little bit, and then after 5 days, things had calmed down. They checked in there, and it was her missing husband. He had transformed back into himself.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. And what do you do with that? Yeah, I mean, I can't discount it. It's part of the oral tradition for a reason.
It sounds
you know?
wild, but there's a lot of missing people out there.
There is 500 to 2,000 every year up here, dude. It's crazy, you know?
That guy that was at camp the other day, the one you asked about if he's ever heard any strange stories, he was talking about his family or somebody he knows, like they'd be driving at night, it'd be pitch black, and all of a sudden it's full daytime, and then it kind of like snapped back to darkness.
Yeah. There's crazy shit up here, dude.
Yeah.
That no one can explain, and a lot of people don't talk about it because who are you going to take it to?
Right.
Hey, I saw the pitch dark, you know, blackness of winter light up like daylight and then slowly fade out. They're like, oh yeah, okay. Maybe get some more sleep, buddy.
Right.
You know, lay off the wacky tobacco, you know?
Yeah.
And I got all these little bees and stuff and gnats buzzing.
Oh, I know, the mosquitoes are terrible.
Yeah.
But you put on some bug dope, so you're...
I put on some, yeah.
But it's wearing off. They're eating it off you.
Yeah, they're
That's like
copping a
cocaine
buzz,
for them. Yeah.
copping a buzz off the bug dope. That's why I use 100% DEET when it's real bad. It'll melt plastic, but damn, it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like we had a great trip out here.
Dude, it's been awesome.
Yeah, it's been really eventful.
Yeah, we covered some serious ground.
We did.
You know, it's hit and miss. You know, that's why usually when we do excursions, we just go to have a fun, and we don't necessarily think about squatching. It's just if we come across something, then we'll investigate it. But other than that, we're just doing our thing. You know what I mean? Whether it be fishing, hunting, or whatever. You know, I feel if you're going out there with the intent to look for these things, there's an energy that they pick up on and sense, and you know, typically it doesn't work out. You know, that's why a lot of my excursions, my videos are very brief. You know, they're less than an hour. You know, because for me, I don't like watching a video where it's just seeing the woods all the time and nothing else. You know what I mean? You get a good clip of what's going on and move on to the next spot, kind of deal. You know, but that's just my own personal thing.
Right.
Some people ask, "Oh, make it longer." It's like,
you do what works for you.
yeah, pretty much. This isn't Burger King. You don't get it your way.
Right. I mean? Yeah, absolutely. Well, hopefully you and Squatch Bait get a call on an active area, and that thing's just standing there. It's been standing there for days.
I get calls for active areas all the time. It's just so remote. I don't have the means to sit there and just go to where, you know, they're sending me a video of this thing standing in the open, 10 foot tall, 5 foot wide, and didn't give a shit that, you know, 25 plus people were watching it. That's concerning. Yeah,
it's hard to get in the car and drive 1,000 miles.
Can't. You'd have to take the ferry. There's no roads to a lot of these places, man.
Yeah.
You know? Shit. There's very little roads for the amount of state.
Yeah.
Very little.
Well, you're doing a great job, and I know everyone appreciates you for the help that you've provided, the service. And, you know, a lot of people don't have anyone to talk to, so when a grown man who's held this in for a long time can look at you in the eyes and tell his story and you believe him, you know, that means a lot to him. He can move on with his life.
I've had guys cry talking about losing a dog and stuff, dude. That's rough, bro.
Here.
When this hardened, salty dog starts weeping about his best friend, dude, fuck. That gets you, you know?
That's the hardest part, is you can't tell anyone. You know, you can't talk about it.
Right,
it's like, this is something that seriously happened, and about lost my life.
It's a weird
It's
shame.
like, shut up and don't tell anyone. You know,
it's like a weird sense of shame, like you did something wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even though you didn't ask for that crap, it just happened, you know, and all of a sudden you're a victim of it, but then you get victimized by people mocking you.
People that know nothing about it and have no idea, they're the ones that are acting like they know what happened to you, and it's like, you're trying to help them out.
That boat back there bucking the waves, initially it sounded like something coming through the brush.
Oh, I thought so too. Like, here comes a grizzly bear.
It happens that quick, dude. We can just be having a jovial time, and all of a sudden, bear right there, you know?
Yeah, I've kind of looked over my shoulders a couple times.
And you're not going to see anything through that shit, dude. It's so thick up in here.
I know.
I mean, it gets a little lighter once you get away from the shoreline a little bit, but not much. You know, it's just that place.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, it's so vast and beautiful, man.
Do you have anything else you'd like to share? Anything else you'd like to add to the video?
Thanks for coming up, dude.
Yeah.
It's been awesome, man.
It's no problem.
Yeah.
Never thought in a million years I'd be up here hanging out with Fred Roehl from Alaska.
And here we are.
I know, here we are.
Yeah. Strange how things work out. And again, thank you to those contributors to the channel that made it happen.
Yeah, it's all the viewers that made this possible. People who support the cause and believe what we're doing. So I appreciate you guys for all the help.
Sincerely.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, I guess we need to get ready, and
Yeah, start packing up.
we got a lot of
figure
packing
things
to
out.
do, and hopefully we can do this again in the future.
Oh, for sure, dude.
Yeah.
It'd be cool if I can get the funding up for the Nuyakuk trip and you can make it for that.
Yeah, that sounds good. Let's give a special thanks to Fred Roehl from Alaska for retelling his encounters on the channel, and to everyone who made this trip possible. It took a lot of work and effort for Fred to put this trip together, and when you were out in the wilderness, just changing your clothes, eating, or sleeping takes a lot more work than being in the comfort of your own home. You can tell Fred's encounter really affected him, and it was the same way for myself. It will change you, and you will never look at life the same way again. Can you imagine looking at these creatures dead in the eyes and seeing them up close for yourself, and trying to get the message out to people who are only going to laugh at you and roll their eyes? Honestly, it's demoralizing knowing the truth, and for people just to scoff at you and say you must have been hallucinating or smoking something funny can really make you feel isolated. It just makes you feel sorry for people, and you will always view life a lot more different than others. It really makes you appreciate nature a lot more, and you will always be on a quest to figure out more about these creatures, even if you decide never to go out in the woods again. Alright, I appreciate everyone for watching the channel, and to everyone who tuned in today. Again, if you want to hear Fred's story, it'll be in the description down below, and if you guys can, please like and subscribe to the channel. Until the next video, take care everyone, and be safe out there.